We've been reminded this weekend that there are people in the world who hate freedom as much as some of us love it. And all over the world this evening, there are writers in prison, writers living in fear of their lives. And we owe a great deal to them for their bravery and their refusal to be silent. As my favorite writer, Margaret Atwood, says, silence and powerlessness go hand in hand. So tonight, to mark PEN's International Day of the Imprisoned Writer, we pay tribute to our brothers and sisters behind bars. And to help us reflect on freedom of expression, I've invited 5 of our finest writers and songwriters to speak, read, and sing whatever they like, I said to them, and they were extremely nervous. So freedom of expression is also a daunting prospect. Before I introduce each of these free writers, I'm going to introduce another writer who stands behind them like a shadow. These are the 5 imprisoned writers that are the focus of PEN's campaign for freedom of expression this year. So to begin, in a Saudi Arabian prison cell this evening, there languishes a blogger called Raif Badawi. Last year, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison and 1,000 lashes, among other punishments, for insulting Islam and founding a liberal website. The first flogging took place after the Friday prayer on the 9th of January this year. Badawi's hands and feet were bound, while the first 50 lashes were administered over the course of 15 minutes. This punishment was due to continue every Friday until he had received a total of 1,000 lashes. However, the subsequent floggings have not gone ahead because Badawi has not recovered sufficiently from the previous punishment. He may face a retrial on the more serious charge of apostasy, which carries the death sentence. Since being in prison, Badawi has won awards from countries all over the world. Awards for journalism, press freedom, humanity, freedom of expression, freedom of thought, courage. But the prize he really wants and deserves, only his own country can give him. So we'll think particularly of Raif Badawi in his prison cell as we listen to Claire Robertson. Claire Robertson is a writer who lives in Simonstown. Many of you will have read and loved her first novel, The Spiral House. It won a Sala Award as well as the Sunday Times Fiction Prize. Her new novel, The Magistrate of Gower, is on sale here tonight, and it's meeting similar acclaim. So may I introduce to you Claire Robertson.
I'm going to do 2 short readings. One that makes a lot of sense and one that I hope will make sense but might be a little bit less sane. One of the other things that happened last week, by no means commensurate, is it was the 120th anniversary of Oscar Wilde going to jail. He was arrested and he was imprisoned in Reading jail in 1895. And I'm going to read a bit from De Profundis. The best bits of this are the bits about Christ, which I'm not going to be reading about, but this is just a shortish description. As he starts to sort of feel his way towards the rewards of prison, strangely enough. Okay. People point to Reading jail and say, that is where artistic life leads a man. Well, it might lead to worse places. The more mechanical people to whom life is a shrewd speculation, depending on a careful calculation of ways and means, always know where they are going, and they go there. They start with the ideal desire of being the parish beadle, and in whatever sphere they are placed, they succeed in being the parish beadle and no more. A man whose desire is to be something separate from himself, to be a member of parliament, or a successful grocer, or a prominent solicitor, or a judge, or something equally tedious, invariably succeeds in being what he wants to be. That is his punishment. Those who want a mask have to wear it. But with the dynamic forces of life, and those in whom those dynamic forces become incarnate, it is different. People whose desire is solely for self-realization never know where they're going. They can't know. In one sense of the word, it is of course necessary, as the Greek oracle said, to know yourself. That is the first achievement of knowledge. But to recognize that the soul of man is unknowable is the ultimate achievement of wisdom. The final mystery is oneself. When one has weighed the sun in the balance and measured the steps of the moon and mapped out the 7 heavens star by star, there still remains oneself. Who can calculate the orbit of his own soul? I hope to live long enough and to produce work of such character that I should be able at the end of my days to say, yes, this is where artistic life leads a man. 2 of the most perfect lives I've come across in my own experience are the lives of Verlaine and Prince Kropotkin, both of them men who have passed years in prison. The first, the one Christian poet since Dante, the other, a man with a soul of that beautiful white Christ which seems to be coming out of Russia. And for the last 7 or 8 months, in spite of a succession of great troubles reaching me from the outside world almost without intermission, I have been placed in direct contact with a new spirit working in this prison through man and things that has helped me beyond any possible expression of words. So that while for the first year of my imprisonment I did nothing else, and can remember doing nothing else, but wring my hands in impotent despair and say, what an ending, what an appalling ending. Now I try to say to myself, and sometimes when I am not torturing myself, do really and sincerely say, what a beginning, what a wonderful beginning. It may really be so, it may become so. I always remember that he thought he would do great things after prison, but prison actually broke him, and he died 3 years after being released. The next bit I'm going to read is, I'm not sure I'm doing the author's intentions any honour. It's Robert Musil, the Austrian author, and it's a piece called Flypaper, and he may have meant it as purely as a literal and very humane description of flypaper, but to me it just is, it sort of, it seeps in and out of allegory, and it starts to speak to me about the weird conundrum that we have to face as we form ourselves into societies and states, and immediately the state and the society starts to deny us the things that we need, individual freedom. So I'll deal with this. But anyway, right, flypaper. Tanglefoot flypaper is approximately 14 inches long and 8 inches wide. It is coated with a yellow poison paste and comes from Canada. When a fly lands on it, not so eagerly, more out of convention because so many others are already there, it gets stuck at first by only the outermost joints of all its legs. A very quiet, disconcerting sensation, as though while walking in the dark we were to step on something with our naked soles. Nothing more than a soft, warm, unavoidable obstruction, and yet something into which little by little the awesome human essence flows. Recognized as a hand that just happens to be lying there, and with 5 ever more decipherable fingers, and it holds us tight. Here they stand all stiffly erect, like cripples pretending to be normal, or like decrepit old soldiers, a little bow-legged, the way you stand on a sharp edge. They hold themselves upright, gathering strength, and pondering their position. After a few seconds, they've come to a tactical decision, and they begin to do what they can, to buzz, to try and lift themselves. They continue this frantic effort until exhaustion makes them stop. Then they take a breather and try again. But the intervals grow ever longer. They stand there, and I feel how helpless they are. Bewildering vapors rise from below. Their tongue gropes out like a tiny hammer. Their head is brown and hairy, as though made of a coconut, as man-like as an African idol. They twist forward and backward on their firmly fastened little legs, bend at the knees and lean forward like men trying to move too heavy a load. More tragic than the working man, truer as an athletic expression of the greatest exertion than the Laocoon. And then comes the extraordinary moment when the imminent need of a second's relief wins out over the almighty instincts of self-preservation. It is the moment when the mountain climber, because of the pain of his fingers, willfully loosens his grip, when the man lost in the snow lays himself down like a child, when the hunted man stops dead with aching lungs. They no longer hold up themselves up with all their might, but sink a little, and at that moment appear totally human. Immediately they get stuck somewhere else, higher up on the leg, or behind, or at the tip of a wing. When after a little while they've overcome the spiritual exhaustion and resume the fight for survival, they're trapped in an unfavorable position, and their movements become unnatural. They lie down with outstretched hind legs propped up on their elbows and try to lift themselves, or else seated on the ground they rear up with outstretched arms like a woman who like women who attempt in vain to wrest their hands free of a man's fists. Or they lie on their belly, with head and arms in front of them as though fallen while running, and only they still hold up their face. But the enemy is always passive and wins at just such desperate, muddled moments. A nothing, an it, draws them in, so slowly that one can hardly follow, and usually with an abrupt acceleration at the very end when the last inner breakdown overcomes them. Then all of a sudden they let themselves fall, forward on their face, head over heels, or sideways with their legs collapsed, frequently also rolled on their side with their legs rowing to the rear. This is how they lie there, like crashed planes with one wing reaching out into the air, or like dead horses, or with endless gesticulations of despair, or like sleepers. Sometimes, even the next day, one of them wakes up, gropes a while with one leg, and flutters a wing. Sometimes such a movement sweeps over the lot, then all of them sink a little deeper into death. And only on one side, near their leg sockets, is there some tiny wriggling organ that still lives a long time. It opens and closes. You can't describe it without a magnifying glass. It looks like a minuscule human eye that ceaselessly opens and shuts.